Hey, this is Notser, and we're talking World of Warships developer blog post. This time we're talking the interaction of large caliber armor-piercing shells with destroyers. Right now, battleships are encouraged to fire AP against everything. And the reason is the damage output. They are rewarded with it. AP, these large caliber guns, they do massive damage. And Wargaming is proposing an adjustment to discourage that armor-piercing shell from being fired blindly at enemy destroyers. The reason that you fire AP at enemy DDs is the chance that it'll stick in the ship. That chance is slim, but if it happens, you do 30% of the maximum AP shell damage, which is really high. It's way higher than the high explosive shell damage that you would do with that same shell, especially against an enemy DD. A high explosive shell is going to do 30% of the high explosive shell, which could still be a smaller number than 10% of the AP. So the chance of that AP stick in the ship, you're going to do more alpha against those enemy DDs. That is what Wargaming is concerned with. And the proposed adjustment would limit the damage potential of armor-piercing shells against enemy destroyers. If the gun caliber is 280 millimeters or higher, it can only do a maximum of 10% of that AP shell damage against enemy DDs. With the exception of Harugamo and Khabarovsk, those two will not benefit from this new rule change, but every other DD, there is really very little incentive to fire AP at these guys any longer with this change. This is an incredible change, incredibly wide-reaching adjustment. Obviously, it's in testing. Now, they state, well, if 12 shells of the Montana stick at the ship, make contact with this proposed 10% rule limitation, it's still going to do 13,500. Yeah, well, what if 12 shells from the same Montana fired at the same DD and 2 or 3 can stick in the ship? Well, the damage output would be way higher than what this proposed change is. So it is a massive damage output nerf against enemy DDs. Let's not act like that isn't the case. But I think this is a good change, at least initially. I think it's a good change that we are actively looking how we can address the elephant in the room. This long-range meta that has developed because players are better at, just playing the game. More accurate, more firepower. They've got upgraded ships, more across the board. Everything is just ramped up in damage output, just across the board. Everyone's just better. But also, their accuracy is so good that I safely, easily will pull the trigger against an enemy DD that is 10, 12, 15 kilometers away, not think twice of it, because the reward is so vast compared to the risk. I'm not risking the ship at all. And this is where it's awkward. This is where DDs feel like, the whole world's against them. You get the perfect outcome. You are going towards an objective. Maybe you recognize the threat, that there is a radar ship close. Well, it's too late. They use radar. Everyone fires at that DD, and because of the way the game currently works, that DD dies 100-0. Multiple battleships have multiple AP stick in the ship, cruisers, other DDs, you name it. The life expectancy, these windows are so extreme right now, and that's not compelling gameplay for people who are coming to the game. They're expecting maybe a drawn-out engagement where there's multiple salvos, multiple mistakes, and successful engagements that lead to success or failure. But in the instance of a destroyer, this combo, this long-range combo, is devastating. And part of it is because the AP shell can stick in the ship of a battleship and do 4, 8, 12, 16,000 damage per shell. I mean, it's ridiculous how much damage I have sustained per salvo from some of these guys. I've dropped 100 to 20%. I've lost 15,000 damage, 20,000 health. These are just ridiculous damage output from battleships engaging DDs at their, near maximum effective range. I would say the maximum effective range that a battleship could hope to do damage to a DD is probably 15 kilometers. That's probably the near max. But that's still crazy. That was never the case when it was first introduced. When the game was first introduced, I would feel pretty safe outside of 10 kilometers as a DD, and I just don't feel that anymore. If I'm spotted, I'm taking damage. So I think this is in response to just the improvement overall by the game, the player base. They recognize where this vulnerability exists. And Wargaming wants to try and implement a change and see what that does to the game. Well, my concern is that destroyers are going to be too strong, okay? If you limit the gun caliber damage output in this manner too, you're changing the dynamic of the gun calibers. So something like a Scharnhorst, 283, magically their AP shell cannot do full damage. Can't even hope to do 30% damage against a DD who makes a mistake or whatever, whereas a smaller gun caliber can do maximum AP damage. The Alaska, the Kronstadt, these are ships that will also lose potential AP damage output. And I have to say, this Alaska, when I was playing the Alaska, I was consistently sticking multiple AP shells in the enemy DDs. Like, it was scary how easily I could deal with them. So, it's going to drop that power. Absolutely going to drop that power in the Alaska. I'm going to have to, reassess where it stands if this implementation of the AP change ever comes to the live game. It's just a massive change. I think it needs to change. I think that you should not be blindly firing AP as a battleship against everything, and you shouldn't be rewarded at near maximum gun range because a friendly used radar and you just happen to be in gun range. You fire at the DD, you do one or two full pin damage against a DD, and he feels like he has to play passive the rest of the game. That's not good either. But when you play the game right now, there's an overabundance of DDs in the queue, probably because of the British stuff. But if you don't have a DD on your team, boy, the game sucks. Boy, does the game suck as a battleship, as a cruiser, as someone who doesn't have radar. You can't catch them. You can't do anything. You have to just hope that they make a mistake, but a good DD is not going to make that mistake. Is this really fair that we give more power to destroyers? I don't know that it is. I don't know that it is. I think maybe some compensation of design needs to occur here. The example they give is that the Montana will do 13,500 if all 12 shells make contact with that enemy DD. With the new rule. Yeah, but if you didn't have this rule, the Montana would probably average 20,000 damage with that same salvo if he were to hit all 12, right? It's a clear drop in damage output. And to act like, oh, well, we'll still be able to damage the target. Well, I hope so, because we can damage every target regardless of caliber. That's always been the case. The concern is that battleships are going to lose even harder to their hunters. That's a pretty big concern. And I think it's a pretty justified concern. So, I don't know how to feel about this. I am very curious to see how this works. I don't like that certain DDs are, exceptions to the rule. It's going to you just have to memorize that. And battleships will have to memorize that. It's going to take a long time for this to actually occur. Maybe something indicating that AP is less effective against the targets you have selected. I don't know. But Harugama, Khabarovsk, they still take full damage. You still want to fire AP at these suckers and have no mercy battleships. But against everything else, AP, HE, you're going to do basically the same amount of damage to them. And it's going to be low. And you're going to feel like DDs have a even higher average life expectancy than they do right now, right? That's a real concern. There's legitimate conversation across the board. And until this implementation is on a public test server or something where we could actually test it in a large scheme, I don't know how to think about this. I love battleships. I love DDs. I think both are really compelling, but both feel very vulnerable to each other, more than they probably have ever felt. And I think we need to ramp that back a little bit more drawn out engagements, and I think the game would be better. So hopefully we can work towards that. I hope you have a wonderful day. Leave your thoughts, and I'll catch you next time.